The date is Tuesday, January 5th, 6:30 p.m. Tonight we are talking about the capital improvement program for years 2010 to 2011 through 2015-2016. We'll discuss the budget message, the debt service schedules, long-term financial program, general municipal programs, proposed capital budget, general municipal and utility programs, and the town manager proposed CIP, which includes the long-term. And any other matters of interest and concern we'll address at the end. All right, so I'll turn it over to Mr. Alford. Steve?
Okay, as the council president has explained, tonight is the first of 3 informational public hearings relative to the town's capital improvement program. The capital improvement program will be reviewed tonight, January 12th and January 20th with the school department. The council on or before January 31st is required to adopt a capital improvement program. A component of the capital improvement program is the pay-as-you-go first-year capital budget. Second component is major projects. Tonight, we'll be looking at a combination of both the major projects as well as the pay-as-you-go portion of the capital budget. We'll also be looking at debt structure and a narrative description of all of the projects that are in the capital program, other than those that are recreation associated. The recreation associated open space components, as well as fair share development fees, will be the subject of the meeting on January 12th. So in getting started, why do we develop a capital improvement program? Let me just say I've given 2 sets of handouts. One is the full capital improvement program budget, and I'll be referring to the pages within that, within the PowerPoint itself. There's also a second page that's been put out which shows revisions of the capital improvement program capital budget that I'm anticipating being necessary as a result of restructuring of the budget associated with the loss of state aid. And we'll go through all of that tonight. So if anybody needs the capital improvement program document, they should pick it up at the door and they can follow along from there. Starting out with the budget message, the first thing that we need to do is to develop on an annual basis and revisit what the comprehensive community needs statement is for the community. And this is to look at the brick and mortar physical requirements, anything from recreation programs to public service programs, water, sewer, and to develop over a 6-year period how we're going to meet those community needs. Second is to provide for the development of a prioritized implementation schedule for meeting those needs that are approved through the council's adoption of the program. And third is to provide the financial data so that good decisions can be made on what the community's ability is to meet and to finance the costs associated with those defined needs. When we look at capital facilities, infrastructure, or capital projects, we define those as all public, both school and municipal facilities, including streets, bridges, water, sewer, parks, and wastewater treatment facilities. For the most part, all capital projects have a cost of no less than $10,000, have useful lives on equipment that's purchased of at least 5 years, and for the most part are non-reoccurring expenses. The terms include property acquisitions as well as improvements to existing facilities or buildings, building construction that's necessary to meet defined community needs. Moving forward on to page 2 of the budget message, the chart on the board shows the change between the adopted 2009-2010 capital program dealing with major capital projects and the proposed 10-11 year. As you can see, we're proposing a reduction in the value of the program associated with the open space program, reducing that from $3 million down to $1.3 million, and potentially reducing the need for municipal bonding from 2.6 that was approved last year to 1.3. We have attempted throughout the development of the program to minimize the amount of new borrowing that would be required as a means of reducing debt obligation and the accompanying debt service costs during these trying economic times. We're looking at moderate changes in the recreation program, which is about $110,000 more than what had been approved last year. The change on the general municipal program is up over $1 million. That is up in view of the fact that the town will be receiving about $907,000 in ERA funds, which is the American Recovery and Resource and Recovery Act, or the federal stimulus dollars. So that allows us to be able to increase that program without having an impact on what the municipal bonding requirements would be for the program. On the pay-as-you-go portion of the capital budget, for the first year of that capital budget, we're looking at the need to reduce what was provided in the document. The document that's been passed out tonight and was made available on December 1st showed a proposed capital improvement program capital budget of $1,331,000. Based on the development of the 2010-2011 year budget, of which that pay-as-you-go portion would be a line item, we are at this time going to be restructuring and revising that estimate down, and we would be taking it down by $215,000. There's a sheet that I've provided that shows the revised town manager's capital improvement program. It documents where that $215,000 reduction in program funding would occur. So because of, we will be going through several programs which will need to be restructured or ratcheted down based on funding availability. The next slide that I have up is from page 3 of the budget message, and it shows the overall summary of the annual funding element and the bonding component. The top end of the slide shows what was in the budget document, showing a $600,000 reduction, and it's now at about $661,000 with the adjustments that will be proposed with the revised plan that I'm presenting tonight. If we move on to the demographics portion of the capital budget, and I want to move quickly through some of this data. If there are questions either from council or from the public, I'd ask people to interrupt me at any time so that we can go through it. If there's a question on the data, let's have that question now, and we'll try to address it as it comes up. The page 9 documents a projected salary, a projected population for South Kingstown at 30,437. The chart that's on the board from page 9, or how page 9 was developed, shows how we would come up with that. We look at what the population was in 2000. We look at what the natural growth is. Natural growth is births over deaths recorded in South Kingstown. And then we look at the housing development that occurred by classification and project what the number of people would be within each of the units. So we're forecasting that since the last census was conducted, approximately 2,200 people are residing in housing that didn't exist before the last census, as well as the 309 growth within the families that existed within the community. So we're looking at a population of 30,437. When we use that throughout the document to come up with per capita numbers, that's the root document as to where that comes from. The moving on with the population is shown on page 10. Page 10 shows that from 1970, we were at 16,009. We're now at that 30,004 estimate, which is about an 80% increase in population over that 40-year period, or about 2% per year. On page 10, we also document construction by building permit classification. This is an important chart because what it clearly demonstrates is the changes that have occurred in construction type within South Kingstown. As you can see, in the earlier years, 99, 2000 through 2003, the type of housing that was being constructed was either single or duplex units. Subsequent to that, we have seen a change since 2004, where a lion's share of new construction is coming in the form of multi-unit accessory apartments, mobile units. That change in terms of housing types also has an impact on student enrollment, because when we were seeing, particularly during the 80s and 90s, almost exclusive single family home development, we would see increases in enrollment based on family size, where now with the construction mostly in the duplex condominium, 2 bedrooms or less, there's most likely going to be reported a smaller family size when the new census information is presented. Also on page 11, we document what the costs associated with single-family homes have been from 2000 through 2009. As you can see, single families in South Kingstown were worth about $165,000 in the 2000 year. The changes that have occurred, they were at their highest point in 2005 at $374,000 and have now come down to $282,500 as of the 2009 documentation from the Warren Report. The values for single family throughout the state in 2000 started at about $135,000 and are now at $189,000. So again, when we look at housing stock in South Kingstown, the values are considerably higher than what the overall averages would be on a statewide basis. Community factors are shown on page 11 of the demographic data. And what we've done here is to review what the value of the number of single homes to what the average value was, and then to compare that to what the assessment values have been. So as you can see, at this point, the average assessment value in South Kingstown is at $421,000 based on the last tax roll that was certified on June 15th of 2009, where the average sale price that we're seeing in the community is $282,500. When you look at the $421,500 average assessment in 2009 based on the $12.09 tax rate, the levy for that single-family home was approximately $5,095, or $62 over what the prior year had been. Effectively, over the 10-year period, the average levy increase has been about 5.25%. It has certainly lessened as far as growth on the levy over the last 3 years. Property tax distribution, which is shown on page 12, and what I have on the board is really a reformat of the chart that's there to show on a stack model the value of the taxes paid that go for municipal purpose for school purpose. And this would be for school purpose, not only the transfer to the school fund, but also net debt service cost, net of the state aid that comes in for construction. So as you can see, the last 2 years, 08-09 and 09-10, have leveled out based on the 1% growth that occurred last year in the levy. From a historical perspective, on page 13 is documentation that shows what the average single household tax was and its relationship between school and municipal burden. You can see that for the most part, if you go back to 1997, the municipal share was $723. It's now jumped up to $1,060. For the schools, it has gone from $1,928 to over 4,000. It's about $4,035 on that chart. Projected debt level is presented on page 20 of the document. Let me just catch up with where I am on the charts. Before I move on to that chart, I did want to make reference to pages 15 through 18 in the demographic section. What I have included in this budget document is documentation from the American Community Survey for the 2006 through 2008 year, which analyzes various demographic issues within a community, types of housing. As you can see, 57% of all housing in South Kingstown involves married couple families, and 27% are people that live alone. Other families, which would be unrelated individuals, are about 15%. So as I think everyone's aware, this is still a bedroom residential community based on the statistics as far as the housing types. Interesting presentation on the mobility of residents. 84% of our residents are in the same place that they were over that 3-year period. So you're not seeing a great deal of changes in the population once they are within the community itself. Page 16 provides educational attainment documentation for people over age 25. And that's documenting that 48% have at least a BA degree in South Kingstown, and with an associate's degree, over 54% of our population over 25 has plus high school education in place. Information on income and travel to work, I think, is also some interesting detail that's there. Age distribution is shown on page 17, shows that that this still is a young community in terms of the people that live here, with under 44 having almost 60% of the population. The page 18 then talks about single-family structures, where 80% of the housing units within the community are single-family. And the last chart that's here looks at people that are paying 30% or more of their income for housing costs, and with renters, 57% are paying more, and with owners with mortgages, 35%. This certainly is indicative of people having high costs of housing in South Kingstown, and also demonstrates a need for concern as far as increases in property tax. If we move on to page 20, page 20 then starts to look at the financial analysis and looking at the community's debt level. In the 2009-2010 year, debt level was at about $30 million. It's $30,082,000. We are forecasting that that debt level will be reduced down to $18.3 million in the 16-17 year. That's a reduction of about $12 million. It's also important to note that with that reduction, we will be loading approximately $10.15 million over that same period of time. So we will continue to use bonding where necessary, yet we will continue with an aggressive schedule as far as debt service repayment, as a means of reducing the percentage share of what debt service requirements are to the annual budget. I've also prepared a chart for page 21 in the budget that documents what the percentage is of debt service to the overall tax levy. So 7.8 cents of every dollar that we collect right now is going for for debt service. The forecast that we have, based on the financial plan that's being presented with the $10.1 million, would see that that would decline to about 4.6 cents. The net debt is the debt that directly comes out of property tax. And again, they were going from about 4.7 cents down to about 3 cents, based on the projections that are made within the document. Pages 23 and 24, I'm not going to go into detail, but this is a 5-year look at the community in terms of the revenue statements, the tax levy, as well as the tax roll. I think some of the more pertinent information that's there that will have impact on us, particularly if the state continues to pursue coming up with an education funding formula, is looking at market value per capita. We are at about $172,000 per person in the community. That's considerably higher than what the state average is, and would be to our detriment in terms of the way the funding formula would be looking at the elasticity of a tax roll and the ability to generate tax levy. I can go into any detail that folks would have, but that's a 5-year review. The information on the flexible tax roll really is not comparable from year to year because of the revaluation purposes. But it does provide demonstration as to what the value of the roll is, and as of the 2009-2010 year, the tax roll was over $5.2 billion. I'll say it here and I'll say it again later that with revaluation, if we see a 10% reduction in the value of the tax roll to generate the same tax levy will mean a sizable tax rate increase, even though the levy wouldn't increase $1. Moving forward on the outstanding debt level, which is really, this sheet that I have up on the board is a summary of pages 25 and 26. This looks at what is the debt level by component, utilities, municipal, or school debt, as of June 30th of 2009, and what it will be as of June 30th, 2016, if the plan were implemented as presented in the document. And as you can see, you're going from the debt of 30 million down to 11 million. This is as if we were not selling one additional bond. So in other words, if the town said from now on, we're not going to agree to spend any more money in bonding, and we're just going to pay off our existing debt, the debt schedules that are in place now would take the principal that's outstanding at this point. As of June 30, 2009, it was at 32.6. It's gone down to 30,082 as of June 10th, based on what's in the 910 budget. So if you were not to sell any additional bonds or do any additional capital projects, by 2016, the remaining debt of the community would be down to $11.8 million. Certainly not realistic, but that's the pay down schedule that would be in place were no additional bonding to be let. The next chart on page 27 summarizes page 27 that's up on the board, and this shows the June 30, 2010 at $30 million going down to 21.25. That 21.25 is still a reduction of $8.8 million, while you're loading in $10.1 million in new debt. So as you pay down existing debt and you add new debt, you're still reducing, you're reducing your debt level by $8 million from where we stand right now, even with the implementation of the $10 million program that's outlined in tonight's presentation. The 6-year bonding components is made up of $19.5 million in total projects, of which $10.1 million, and this is on page 28, would be coming from future bond issues issued over the 6-year term of the program. Over 40% of that would be in recreation programs, another 12% in the open space. Schools would be making up approximately 30% of that total, and we'll go over that in detail. Page 29 is a summary of the entire $19.5 million program. It lists the 14 projects that we anticipate having activities with during the 6-year term. Many of these programs are ongoing programs. The Open Space Acquisition Program. This one, as I mentioned earlier, has been reduced in scale and scope. The current year's program was set at $3 million, and $3 million in bonding was going to be necessary. We did not feel that it was appropriate to show that type of debt loading for additional open space acquisitions at this time. We also are not seeing the market for additional open space property with the frequency that we had seen 5 years ago. Some of the other projects that are listed here, and we'll go into detail on all the recreation open space projects that are listed on this page, we will talk about on the 12th of January. The projects that are listed for general municipal programs on this page are what we'll talk about tonight, and the school department is what we will talk about on the 20th. So again, at the bottom of the page, we're showing the $10.15 million. Of that 10.15, we would see non-property tax related debt of $1.9 million. That is that we would have the $1 million that we propose for guild renovations would be paid out of investment income held within the guild trust. So it wouldn't have impact on the property tax, provided that the trust paid all of the debt service associated with that. With the school bonds that we're looking at, approximately $3 million over the 6-year period, we would look at 30% reimbursement on that coming from the state on school construction assistance. I caution that as the state continues to experience difficulties in meeting defined obligations, that there may be revisions that will occur in the reimbursement formula. If that does happen, and the 30% floor is reduced to 20 or 15%, we will have to reevaluate the availability of floating that $3 million over the 6-year period. Again, this is a planning document, not so much a budget document. This looks at the needs, it looks at the projected values, but the reality is that if revenue sources change, or if regulations change as far as how a project needs to be developed, and additional cost factors come in on a yearly basis, we update that. The next page, on page 30 of the document, shows the general obligation bond loading schedule. We're showing here that, as the council will recall, in November we sold $1.2 million. That's the 9-10 year, and that was for school purposes. The 10-11 year, we're showing the potential for another $1.2 million. Our objective from a staff perspective will be to bring that forward to the 11-12 year and not have those bonds issued in 10-11. By doing that, we would relieve some of the debt service anticipated that's presented in this document. This shows what will happen if we did sell in 10-11. However, based on financial concerns, the longer that debt were delayed being put to market and service was required on it, will reduce what the debt service component is that would add to tax rate. So it potentially, if those two projects in the 10-11 year get moved to 11-12, we could have 1.7 million, and the 1.7 million may not even be necessary if open space projects do not materialize that would require that additional bonding. So again, from a planning perspective, we're putting meat on the bone, but it can be adjusted based on what's in the community's best interest, or there's some projects that need to be done on a timely basis, because if you don't do it now or you don't do it next year, you're not going to get the opportunity to do it 2 years from now. You can't pick the time. If we can pick the time, then we may want to look to defer projects of a capital nature that have bonding requirements associated with it. The next page 31 provides what the schedule would be as far as the future bonds and when those bonds were authorized. As you can see, everything that's in the 6-year schedule at this time, other than $3.1 million, has already received bonding authorization. That $3.1 million would go for voter consideration no earlier than November of 2012. I want to now move and stay with financials and move to page 54 of the document, and we'll go through the debt service schedule component. The first chart, which is on page 54, provides a historical perspective as to what debt level has been to the community. And I took this all the way back to 1998, and you can see that the big year was, we were up to $43.6 million in bonded debt in the 2000 year. That was the year that we had placed into financing the Broad Rock Middle School, and that was the highest year as far as what debt level was for the community. That has now been brought down by about $10.9 million down to the 2009 year, where the debt level was at the $32.7 million level, roughly. Our objective is to maintain debt level in that in the range of between 25 and 35 million. Obviously, the more difficult the economic conditions within the community, the lower we want to bring that debt level. In looking from 1999 through 2009, we can also look at what the debt per capita was. And back in 2000, debt per capita was up to $1,562. It's now down to about $1,074. So we're going in the right direction, particularly based on the concerns that we have with finance at this time for local funding needs. On page 55, we're showing the projected bonded debt level as we go out from 2009 through 2016. And what we're showing here is that we would level out in about 2013 at around $21.2 million, and in 2016 still be at around that $21.2 million. This is a target that we think is a reasonable dollar amount, which will yield less impact on the tax levy associated with debt service. The next sheet that I have up on the board is the debt per capita for that period, and again going from about $988 down to $561. The next chart that I have up on the board is on page 59. And again, this documents the $10.1 million in funding through bonding, what's coming from the tax base, what's coming through the third parties that I've already mentioned, and also what the relationship would be as far as the average homeowner. In 910, the average house value, as I had said before, is $421,000. The tax rate was 58 cents, so it generated, of all the taxes that were being paid, of the $5,000 in taxes, $245 was going toward debt. In the 15-16 year, assuming a 1% increase in the value of the taxable roll and assuming a 1% increase in the value of housing assessments, that would see a drop of about $55. So again, everything points to us attempting to reduce debt relationship to debt burden to the tax levy. There are several components of revenues that pay down debt as a means of not having to pay it through the property tax. And if you look, starting on page 55 and 56, is an explanation of the different revenue sources that are used to pay debt. State library construction aid is provided to us on library construction up through 1990. We've still got one project that is receiving construction aid from the state for library construction. School building construction is 30% of this, at this time, of both the principal and interest costs associated with bonds that have been approved by the state as part of the school building program. Fair share fees also provide for both pay down of debt associated with education bonds and for recreation bonds. As I mentioned earlier, Neighborhood Guild reinvested income held in the Guild Trust would pay for debt service associated with improvements to that facility. Wastewater system expansion districts, the one in Kingston as well as the one in Middlebridge, the users that receive the specific benefit associated with those capital construction of those two system additions are paying all costs associated with the debt associated with those construction projects. Real estate conveyance taxes, these are the dollars that are collected each time property sells in town, are used to pay down costs associated with bonds issued for open space purposes. Water system user fees are paying for the cost of bonds issued for the purchase of the metering system that was installed in both the South Shore and Middlebridge water systems, I believe 2 years ago. Superfund program reserve is paying for debt associated with the two bonds that have been issued that are related to the landfill closures at both Rose Hill and at Kingston. I would caution, however, that the holdings within the Superfund reserve will most likely be exhausted within the next 3 to 5 years. At that time, the municipal property tax burden will be increased to be able to continue to pay service on those bonds. But at this point, the community is still using dollars based on an insurance settlement from several years ago that will be used to pay down a certain portion of that debt. One of the costs associated with landfill closures that we will begin to incur in the 11-12 year is to pay back the state. No bond was issued, but our responsibility is to pay 30% of what the state's costs were for that landfill closure. That cost will probably be about $40,000 a year over a 27-year period. So we will not see that in the debt structure, but it will exhaust the funds that are currently available for the payments on the bonds for Superfund purpose. Moving on to page 61, and I don't mean to go too fast, but there's a lot of data to cover tonight. Pages 61 through 64 provide summary observations about the level of bonded debt to a number of different factors. The first shown on page 61 is the bonded debt as a percentage of the tax base. And again, you're seeing the declining ratio. The debt per capita, which is shown on page 62, again, is showing a forecast of reductions. Page 63 is showing the per capita debt as a percentage of income. This chart becomes more difficult in terms of its credibility based on being able to determine legitimate income figures. As we get away from the census, we're now, in the 9th year. There are several different estimates that the federal government uses. The one that we're using here for income purposes is for housing purposes. But we have continued to use that chart because it's been in the document, and I think that it's still an important measure, but it's one that I question sometimes why there is as many estimates of what per capita income is for the community as there are. The debt service as a percentage of operating revenues, when we talk about operating revenues, we're talking about the general fund itself. So this is debt service as a percentage of really the operating program itself, where we're talking about, almost 6% and it going down to about 3.3. Should the economy turn around in 3 years, we may want to expand on the bonding projects if community needs are defined that are not being addressed over the schedule, and it would still allow us to stay well within the 6% level, which I think is a reasonable expectation as a component of the overall budget. I also present on page 65 the undesignated fund balance values for the community. As noted in the chart, as of fund balance as a percentage of the 08-09 budget was 13.4%. What we're seeing is it has gone down to 12.71 as a percentage of the 9-10 budget, and we're looking at the operating surpluses for 9-10 and for 10-11 being much less than the $1.2 million that's being forwarded as a revenue to finance the following year's budget. At this point, if we were to see a $100,000 surplus in the 9-10 year, and again, I caution that the budget that was developed is now short almost $2 million over the last 2 years from what had been planned. The 9-10 budget will lose over $1 million from what had been promised at the time that the state budget was adopted in June, if the third and fourth quarter of the motor vehicle tax is held back from the state. We're still forecasting that we would have possibly a $100,000 surplus, but we would have $1.2 million going out. It would reduce the undesignated funds down to about $8.2 million, and if we were to see similar activities in the 10-11 year, even if we were to take down the amount of undesignated funds being forwarded to the 10-11 year to $1 million, we'd still be looking at a fund balance going down to around 9.99 or 10%. It's still a proper fund balance. Undesignated funds can be used during difficult times, but what we can't do is to have a continuation of undesignated funds being forwarded in excess of what the surplus position is on a yearly basis, or we will take that fund down to an unrealistic number. I have revised on what's on the board the estimates based on the loss of the motor vehicle, and again, that would be taking us down in the 10-11 year down to a 10% level. This chart isn't in the book, but I think it's an important chart because what it does is it shows undesignated fund balance over the past 10-year period and how it's associated with the percentage of the municipal budget. And what this chart is showing is that in the 06-07 year, we were up to 13.6%. We're now down at 12.71, and the forecast is to go down to 10. So we're losing, a substantial percent as a margin of what the undesignated fund balance percentage is to what the operating budget is. The fact that the operating budget actually went down in the current year and most likely will go down in the next year will hold the percentage of undesignated funds to operating program at a higher level, but that's not a reasonable expectation that it can continue in that manner. What we will be looking at is how do we reduce the value of the undesignated funds that are used as an operational revenue each year down to a more reasonable number, down from the 1.2 million. So now we're back to the 6-year program, and we're going to deal now with the general municipal programs themselves. That starts out, and I'd ask John to come forward. This starts out with the Transportation Improvement Program, and that takes you back to page 40. Polly, I've tried to give you every page number tonight.
Thank you, thank you. It's a great
The
help.
Transportation Improvement Program is funding for the public services infrastructure, and it takes into review road reconstructions that are necessary both on the arterial and collector roads, what drainage infrastructures are necessary, bridge and dam reconstruction, and inspection, as well as when there is money, sidewalk construction or facilities improvements at the highway bond. When we look at the Transportation Improvement Program for the 6-year term, we're looking at a $6.2 million program that would be paid for by pay-as-you-go contributions over the 6 years of about $3.8 million, general obligation bonds of about $1.5 million, as well as funds that are held in that capital reserve today of about $900,000. And we would expend those improvements, about $3.4 million on arterial roads, another 1.7 on collectors and so forth. This chart that's on the board is on pages, I believe it's on page 41. The projects that are anticipated to be completed are listed on the chart with Schoolhouse Road, Jerry Brown Farm, Liberty Lane, and Stony Fort Road are the majors. A good deal of improvements are necessary on municipal roads. However, the amount of property taxes that are available are going to be limited. In fact, what I am recommending is going to be about a $75,000 reduction. We'd anticipated $625,000 coming out of the capital budget, pay-as-you-go, to the Transportation Improvement Program for the 10-11 year. That's being reduced now by $75,000, so it'll be at a $550 level. Again, we've got to cut that budget from what was put forward on December 1st to one that can be fit into the 2010-2011 operational budget. With that as an introduction, I'll let John walk through what the anticipated improvements will be.
The first one is going to be the next phase of Schoolhouse Road. We have to bid this spring for the first phase, which runs from Moonstone Beach Road to Greenwood Beach Road. And that project has federal ARPA funding. So the next phase will be from, that's the current phase. The next phase we'll be looking at will be from, actually it's going to be from Tunica Beach Road to Greenhill Beach Road, to Moonstone Beach Road, I'm sorry. That'll be the next phase. Because Schoolhouse Road is so long, it's going to be funded over, 3 or 4 years. So and again, with all our road reconstruction projects, they're well received by the public. These are old arterial collector roads, and farmers put them in probably in the first century. They don't have the proper base to them, so they're unraveling at this point based upon the traffic loads, the traffic speeds.
John, do you have that mic on? Thank you.
Sorry about that. It does provide also an added benefit because with the roads now, before we reconstruct them, don't plow clean. Once we put new fresh pavement on, they plow clean, and we eliminate all the potholing as well. So there are a number of operational benefits in addition to the capital improvements of reconstructing the roads.
These are just pictures of the existing road conditions that will be part of the improvements that are scheduled. The one to the left is Mattoonic Schoolhouse, as well as the one to the right is Liberty. You can see with Liberty Lane, the condition of the road. It's not one that can be reclaimed under a stone seal. It's going to need to be reconstructed fully. Another picture on the Liberty Lane.
And the problem with Liberty Lane is a lot of that road goes through a swamp. So it's in poor soil conditions, so we've done some test pits and some soil analysis, and we'd be putting down what's called a geogrid that's going to stabilize the earth below the road. So once we construct the road, hopefully we won't have that condition again for many, many, many years.
On pages 42, 43, and 42 and 43, document all of the different road projects that are anticipated over the 6-year period. So in addition to Schoolhouse Road with the 3 sections that are there, there's work that's anticipated with Torrey Road, there's work that's anticipated with Old North Road, Warden's Pond, Liberty, Indian Lane, Indian Trail, and so forth. There's drainage work that will also be required. The council awarded a contract for Phase 2 stormwater feasibility study. If that project comes to fruition and we're required by state regulation to implement some of those improvements, there could be several $1 million in demands being placed on this budget that are not incorporated at this time. The same with the TMDL studies that are yet to be conducted. This is something that the council has had discussions on. Our concerns are that these public works projects that would be directed or demanded by state or federal regulation could in fact be the largest capital construction projects that this town's ever seen. And I'm not sure where the financing would be that would make that readily available or attainable. But that is, once we get those studies completed, we'll be in a better position to provide a responsible municipal position with the state. On page 43, the bridge inspections, as well as the bridges that we're responsible for maintenance, upkeep, and general care, are listed, as well as the facilities that we're responsible for. We're looking in the 2010-2011 year for $18,000 that would be used to replace the motorized gate at the Highway Department. That gate's been in place since the inception of that building back in 1974. The 2010-2011 year contribution, where it shows road improvement program on pay-as-you-go at the bottom of the page, that 625 will have to be reduced to 550. If there's no questions, we'll move on. Another program that was initiated back in 2004 was authorization for the town to be able to purchase property that would be used for municipal purposes. Municipal purposes were defined really as other than open space purpose. This would be where we would land bank property that would be used for future municipal needs, whether it be for the development of a gym complex, whether it's additional recreation fields, whether it's an additional school property, whether it's land that needs to be acquired for drainage purposes. At this point, we're forecasting that in the 10-11 year that as much as $700,000 may be necessary for land acquisition. That's currently under investigation. We're also showing that a portion of the bonding authorization from 2004 would be used. I would suggest that if we can defer bonding in the 2010-11 year, that we would probably recommend revision here, where we would take no bonding to purchase that $700,000 worth of property, but rather increase the contribution from the recreation impact fees. Recreation impact fees at this point, we've got about $1.25 million that has been set aside specifically for recreation land or recreation activity, brick and mortar. So it may be a case that, that we would look at using $400,000 in fees as a way of minimizing the amount of bonding authorization that would be necessary. And again, that's only with a placeholder of the $700,000. There's $750,000 that's been authorized back in April of 2004. But this is a project that we've carried now since 2004, and we've shown it each year as being the next year, until we find a piece of land and come up with a purchase and sale agreement. This will continue as a placeholder, but it's in place so that when land becomes available, it has to be acquired at that time, because it may not be available if you want to wait 2 years or if you're going to need to find funding authorizations. So we need to be able to move when the property is available. So this component is listed in the capital planning document on an annual basis for just that time when the land is available, and we can come up with a reasonable purchase and sale agreement. I'm going to have to make you sit down and come back again, John.
Okay, that's fine.
The next component is with the Kingston Free Library. And as usual, Shirley always gives us beautiful pictures of her facilities. In starting out, what we're looking at is a project that will cost approximately $300,000. Its purpose is to eliminate leaking of rain into the building through the belfry shingles and painting the exterior of that building. What I'm looking at with this is we have about $110,000 in the capital reserve for library improvements that we would expend all of those dollars. We're requesting Champlin Foundation to provide funding support of $100,000, and we're looking at potentially 3 years of $30,000 a year being put into the capital reserve to come up with the total $300,000 that would be necessary to do the project. It would be done in 2 phases. The first phase being the belfry roof replacement. That could be done in the 11-12 year, and then in 12-13, hopefully we would have the Champlin dollars in place, the capital funding for the latter 2 years, and be able to complete the exterior. Shirley, you want to walk through the project?
So the first phase with replacing all
And
the
can you use the mic too, because it's
Yes.
being
With
recorded?
the first phase, we replace all the shingles on the belfry and on the mansard roof. Over the years, the exterior of Kingston has been renovated. Problem is that the shingles have been replaced that needed to be replaced, and now we're in a stage where they're all, they're cupping and they're flowing out and they've thinned, and they're just all, so we want to replace them all and be done with it. And then, stain them. And then the second phase, paint again. We only painted not even 10 years ago. But if you look at it closely, you'll see that the nails are popping out. Some of the clapboards are rotted, and it all needs to be painted, and the trim needs to be painted. So over a couple of years of doing that, we should get Kingston whipped into shape. Here's some photographs. You can see where the shingles are worn and split. They're cupping on the second one. The flashing, the one on the bottom on the left, there's some flashing showing. In 2000, flashing was put underneath the shingles to help, I guess, shore up the thinning shingles. Well, that flashing now is also falling out. So we want to pull those out, fix them. The next one, more cupping. I had plenty of photographs. I was told to restrain myself. So, but I wanted to put more cupping and the nails popping out, because when you drive by or you go into the building, it looks great. It's when you look up at it, because it's high up, and when you start looking at it, you see these things, and it really needs some attention. And right now, when we have heavy rains, the rain just comes in through those belfry shingles, right into the thing. We have plastic sheeting on the bottom, all tucked in to fix it. A couple of years ago, you might remember, we fixed Potter Hall ceiling, And we certainly want to make sure that we keep that fixed. So then the next slide just goes on about the painting, which we'll do in 3 years from now, and replace the rotted clapboards. And the next slide shows some just examples of how the paint is peeling, the clapboards are rotting, and it needs attention. So it's a big project, but it's an important project for our historical Kingston Free Library. Any questions? Yes.
Shirley, are the other libraries in pretty good shape, or?
Well, Hale was painted, yes, well, Hale was painted in the summer of 2004. It was power wash painted, you know, when all fixed up, so Hale's in good shape. And Peacedale, we did just a few years ago too, maybe in 2005, I think we did the exterior of Peacedale. So now it's Kingston's turn to get a little
Yes.
attention.
It needs it.
Okay.
Okay.
Shirley did have 17 pictures. We did knock them down a little bit.
It's impressive, though.
If we move on, property revaluation.
Thank you, Shirley.
Thank you.
The property revaluation, I'm showing a chart here which is a little bit different from the chart on page 46. On page 46, we only show what the cost of the project will be for the 2012 full mass appraisal, and that's projected at $752,000. What I'm showing on the board is the statistical reval that's being done this year, which is costing us approximately $200,000, plus the $750,000 for the mass appraisal. So what we're looking at is that over the 6-year term, there would be a $950,000 or $951,000 cost. Funding for that, we have been reserving dollars out of the capital budget for the last few years in advance of the mass appraisal, because it is a municipal cost that we would have difficulty coming up with $750,000 in 1 year, and then having to look 3 years down the road to do another statistical for another $200,000. So this is part of monies that are held in capital reserve funding to be able to meet project costs that are of a major size. The funding that we're looking at, though, is still heavy. In 9-10 current year, we had to put $100,000 into out of the pay-as-you-go. 10-11, we're budgeting the $120,000, and in 11-12, we would be looking at another $125,000. What I would hope to do from the completion of the mass appraisal is to set up a schedule where we would put annual contributions over the 9-year life of a 9-year cycle for revaluation with the 2 statisticals and the 1 mass, come up with a projected cost for all 3 of those, and then come up with an annualized cost so that we're not looking at, we would be looking at an average cost each year rather than looking at each time we go to a mass appraisal to have major cost implications on the capital budget, because it then takes away dollars from other programs. At this point, the state is still providing reimbursement on the statistical reval of about $120,000 of the $200,000 cost. It's not sure that that program will continue as we go forward. There's also questions on whether the state will reconsider how revaluations are required. Right now, they're required every 3rd year with a mass appraisal every 9th. So you have 2 statisticals, 1 mass. There's discussions that are underway on whether that should be changed to having a 6-year cycle and having 1 mass and 1 statistical, or potentially going where you would go to a 12-year schedule and do 2 statisticals each 4 years, and then a mass in the 12th year. That would reduce the annual cost associated with it. We're looking at approximately $750,000 for a mass appraisal. It sounds like a great deal of money, but recognize that you're talking about in excess of $60 million a year for 3 years, or $180 million in levy that's being created based on the expenditure of that $750,000. So yes, it's an expensive program. It takes a major piece of the revenues or program expenses that are available for the capital budget on a yearly basis right before a mass appraisal. And the way to get around that would be to try to have more money advanced in the later years, so that by the time the reval comes, the money will be held in the capital reserve. We've been very successful in using capital reserves as a way of being able to minimize the amount of bonding that's necessary, as well as to not have major spikes in what the capital budget funding requirements are on an annual basis. Moving on, Adult Day Services Edition. The Adult Day Services, at this point, what we're looking at is we've received in 2009 $90,000 in the CDBG grants. We've got funds held in balance, which is based on prior year capital budget contributions to that reserve of $182,000. We have sufficient dollars to be able to complete that project if it comes in at the 288. Unfortunately, the 288 figure probably needs to be updated, but what we're looking at is holding off on construction till fiscal 2012-13. The reason that we're doing that is I want some opportunity to look at the census of the number of clients and client days that are using the Adult Day Services facility. What we're seeing is that the use is increasing over what it was 2 years ago and over what it was last year. So we're seeing larger daily memberships that would justify the construction, but what we want to do is to go at least one more year before we actually authorize the construction. If we can't get extensions under the CDBG grant term, it may be a fact that next year when we look at the capital improvement program that we move that up a year. Pictures that have been provided in the past show the Adult Day Services program. I'm sure that many of our residents have never had an opportunity to see the program in operation. The existing space is inadequate based on what standards it should be meeting in terms of providing both respite area, private areas, as well as work areas to work with the client base. A portion of our client base, a major portion of the client base, have difficulties and need one-on-one services. Right now, we're using the office space to provide the only bed space when somebody needs a rest period. That needs to be changed. We're also looking at having the addition would come off the back of the building, and we would have to relocate some of the existing parking behind that building. So that's a lot to expect for the $288,000 that was forecast on this a couple of years ago. What we may look at doing is instead of a 1,500 square foot addition, looking at a lesser sized building that would at least meet what our needs are. We don't anticipate that the daily membership will be more than 20 to 21 people, so it's not a question of needing expanded space for a broader sized program, but rather having adequate space to meet existing program needs. Moving on, Town Hall parking and facility improvements. On an annual basis, we put approximately $10,000 a year into the Town Hall reserve fund that's used for building modifications and improvements. At this point, the list of items that we're looking at are window replacements that are necessary both in the planning and personnel area. Those windows go back to probably the early 60s on the windows in the personnel area, and on the planning department, that building was renovated, I think, in 1978. The windows are not airtight and certainly are a problem for heating purposes. We are looking at a federal grant that will come under the AERA program that may allow us, in conjunction with the schools, to look at all municipal buildings for energy saving purposes. For the most part, the emphasis will be on insulation, heating systems, and less on windows, but there may be a potential that some of the improvements that are necessary for energy conservation in this building could be met with those grants as we go forward. They've been very slow at the state level in terms of coming up with the rules for these programs. In fact, there's a meeting later this week, which will be the first rulemaking session for explanation to the municipals as to how the program is going to be administered through the state. So we're looking at that. We need to really look at the sprinkler system being put in the original townhouse, which is the building that we're in here. We were very fortunate with the fire that occurred 2 years ago, but sprinkler system is probably warranted in the older portions of the building. We also need to look at the parking lot improvements. The existing lot was last done when the building additions were put on. It's in need of replacement. We're looking at the cost of that lot improvement of over $125,000. The reserve at this point has, how much money, Al? About $100,000 that's there at this point. There are improvements. The dormers in this room need to be recapped, and some of the painting needs to be redone in this room as well. The windows in the town clerk's office are an abomination. The walls in the town clerk's office are nothing other than the granite with mortar. So the wind actually goes through those walls, as well as shrieking voices sometimes. But it's a case of those type of improvements can be made and should be made as we go forward. But what we're doing is to continue to contribute into the reserve fund, and then we spend the money as necessary. Roof repairs have been completed on the buildings. Heating system upgrades have been completed on the building. Carpeting has been replaced in the building. So we're keeping up with the maintenance on the building, but there are a few major projects that are necessary. This is another project area that's going to be cut by $5,000. It was a $10,000 transfer that was proposed. I'm reducing that down to $5,000 with the modifications that are being proposed this evening. The pay-as-you-go portion of the capital budget that we're going to talk about tonight are going to be all of the public works, public safety, EMS, those type of improvements. But before we get to that, I want to talk about the revisions. The chart that I have up on the board and that I've given out as well shows what the adopted 2009-2010 capital budget was. With the loss of the, when we put that out as a budget document, from what the council had adopted in last January was at $1.5 million. That was cut when the manager's budget came out to $1.4 million. Based on the loss of the state aid, that $1 million that we are anticipating losing in the 9-10 year, we're looking at cutting an additional $75,000. That $75,000 in the current year budget would be $5,000 coming out of the park rehab transfer, $60,000 coming out of the public works acquisition, the equipment reserve, $5,000 out of the building reserve for the public safety building, as well as $5,000 out of cable that would get it down to zero for the 9-10 year with the communications division. So we will be cutting $75,000 more than what was in the adopted budget in 9-10 as a way of trying to reduce our expenditures to meet what the revenue estimates are at this point. For the 2010-2011 year, what we're looking at is that the governor is going to propose removal of the first and second, as well as the third and fourth quarter, or to remove all funding for the motor vehicle excise tax reimbursement. If that occurs, we will have to budget $2 million less in state aid than we did in the 9-10 year. This is going to require considerable reductions in both operational programming, and it's also going to affect the capital budget. So at this point, what had been put on the table for December 1st, which was the budget I developed in October and early November, was a capital budget of $1,436,000. At this point, I'm looking at probably being able to support no more than $1,221,000. The $30,000 reduction, and we'll talk about that on the 12th, on the park rehab will reduce the basketball court renovation at Treaty Rock Park by $5,000. It'll reduce the improvements to the Tuckertown restrooms, which was slated at $25,000. Both projects are necessary, but they're going to be deferred. $75,000, as I mentioned, will be coming out of the road improvement program. That $625,000 will go down to $550,000. The reason that I'm suggesting that that's a necessity is that we will be receiving the ERA funds of about $917,000 that will accelerate the road improvement program further than if those dollars hadn't come in. And so we're going to take $75,000 less from property taxes to support the road program. I'm also revising the recommendation as far as the public works equipment. Public works equipment, there was $150,000 that was budgeted for the purpose of replacing the road grader. We're now looking at having that done over a 2-year period, so that $150,000 is $75,000 is removed, and it will have to be moved into the 11-12 budget. $5,000 will be removed out of the transfer to the capital reserve for the police station. The $20,000 on the communications equipment cable is being removed, but for good reason. What we're looking at is the police department is going to receive a $40,000 grant from Homeland Security that will provide for some of the communications equipment upgrades that are in the capital budget. With that grant, we'll have money available within the police function for the communications improvement that will allow us to put the improvements in for the alarm system. The alarm system that we're replacing for this $20,000 is an alarm system that services various businesses in town that are tied in by circuit into the police station for their fire alarm. What we are going to need to look at is a licensing system that will start to recover that cost. If this equipment lasts 10 years at a $20,000 cost, then what we're looking at is that there's going to need to be some recovery because there's specific benefit associated with the acquisition of that equipment. But right now, we're going to be able to remove that because we will be able to replace the equipment, but while we're not supplanting with federal dollars, what we're being able to do is to restructure the communications program. Senior transportation, that's down $5,000. That's a multi-year program, 3 years to replace the senior transportation vehicle. It's ironic, we're cutting it because of the cut in state aid, but the reason the vehicle needs to be replaced 2 years earlier is because we're traveling twice as much because we're now transporting what the state used to do at no cost to our seniors. The town hall improvements, we're also looking at cutting the transfer there from 10,000 to 5. So again, this is what I'm predicting will have to come out when my budget comes out to you on March 1st as far as the restructuring that's going to be necessary to minimize the impact on the tax levy for the 10-11 year. Okay, now we go to the pay-as-you-go portion of the budget. Jump to page 82. And bring John back. Some of this will be repetitive. The first component is the road improvement program. As you can see on the board, the 625 will become 550. We've talked about Matunic Schoolhouse, Liberty Lane, and Stony Fort. These are just pictures of the different improvements that are going to be necessary. John, is there any other comments that you need to make on
I think
them?
I already went over Schoolhouse Road.
I think that it's important to note that when we talk about full road reclamation, this is what we've done on Tuckertown Road, what we've done on Saugatucket Road. These are where we've really created brand-new roads within our network. Hopefully, those roads will last 15 to 20 years with proper maintenance, and a component of the proper maintenance is what the council approves on an annual basis for the seal cracking program, which is used. That'll save the surfaces. Our biggest problem with most of the arterial roads that are town roads is that there are no road bases. Many of them are roads that were gravel roads. They became stone seal roads, had a matted surface on them. The travel is too high on them now. They've become rutted, and for us to be able to repair them really requires the reconstruction. So if we can do 1 or 2 roads a year over a 15-year cycle, we should be able to take care of a major portion of the arterial roads. It still leaves a number of the secondary roads being required to be stone sealed, but I don't think any municipality is going to have the dollars to be able to support being able to have a 15-year cycle on replacement or renovations of all of their roads, particularly with what the cost associated with oil products are today. Liberty Lane, this is another one of the shots that John had for it. The Stony Fort, do you want to talk about that one?
Yeah, Stony Fort, obviously, given its proximity to the university, is a collector road. Primarily from 138 to Old North Road is a most heavily used section. And again, because of its length, we've broken that up into multi-year funding. First section would be from Old North Road to Slocum Road, which leads up into North Kingstown.
And as we know, a major portion of Stony Fort Road is being used more and more as a exit road from the university. And the more that we can get traffic off of 138 or on Upper College Road, it makes sense for us to try to make sure that that road network is in as good a shape as possible. Right now, Stony Fort's in poor condition. Jerry Brown Farm has been around, I think this photograph goes back about 8 years. We are still attempting to get a 30-foot right-of-way. There's a 17-foot section of private property which abuts the road surface itself, which is in probate at this point. And if and when that property is cleared and becomes available for acquisition or for dedication to the town, we would then be able to make the improvements. So you want to talk about what improvements are proposed, John?
Yeah, I think primarily it's, if I'm going to say the northeast shoulder, the vegetation comes right out to the edge of pavement. Fortunately, the heirs at this point have allowed us to clear that back, but we would like to take acquisition, and then there's also areas where there's low spots with drainage problems. So I think as a minimum, we would probably construct some swales along the shoulder of the road. Saugatucket Road, when we have our springtime rains, there's a hydraulic restriction at the culverts where the road narrows down. So what we're looking to do is conduct what's called a H&H study, hydraulic and hydrology study, that will not just analyze the pass-through capacity or increasing the capacity for this culvert, but the DEM also requires to analyze any downstream structure. We have to make sure that if we increase the capacity here, we're not adversely impacting downstream structures. So the first thing that we need to do is have the H&H study done, and then based upon the study findings, we'll see if it's feasible to do anything to that culvert or not to increase the pass-through capacity.
If there's no questions on that, then we would move to the Public Works equipment. And again, as I mentioned, the 150 on the grader will be cut to $75,000. John, you want to talk about your pieces?
Yep, you want to go on to the next photo, Steve? Yeah, okay, the grader we have now is a 1989. There are a limited number of private roads in town that receive seasonal grading in the spring by tradition. We don't increase the level of service, but we've been directed by legal counsel that we have to maintain the existing level of service. At this point in time, the grader's age is such that we're spending more in repairs for hydraulic lines and whatnot than it is to replace it. So at this point, based upon what the manager's indicated, we're gonna go with a 2-year funding element. Next year would be the first funding year. The second piece of equipment, this is, it's probably our biggest piece of equipment in our fleet. It's a jet vac truck. We're required under Phase 2 stormwater to clean our catch basins frequently. And what this is actually, it's a big vacuum cleaner, I guess, for lack of better terms, but unfortunately, the sand is very abrasive. So the pump, the vacuum system, and even the pipe fittings with his elbows, the sand will go right through. It's like a sandblaster. It'll go right through the fitting. So it's a highly mechanized piece of equipment. The wastewater division also uses this to clean out their wet wells in the pump stations periodically. So it's used by both the wastewater division and the highway division. And this is the last year of funding for this. So again, I think with all our highway equipment and vehicles, you know, we're gonna hopefully have the funding in place, but I think we're gonna try to continue to use them as long as possible until we get to a point where we have to make a decision that we have to purchase a new vehicle.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, is that we have a schedule for vehicle and equipment replacement, but just simply because the money is made available doesn't mean that the equipment is going to be traded in. It'll be traded in at the time that it needs to be traded in based on conditions. The balancing act is on equipment that we own is if we hold it too long, then the resale value or the residual value that we're going to get back on it goes down faster than if we had purchased it 6 months or a year earlier. But one of the things that we have done with the capital improvement program is that we will transfer the money to the reserves and hold those dollars there from year to year, so that if a truck was supposed to be purchased in the 9-10 year, yet the department believes that they can still get another 6 months or another year out of it, that money isn't lost to them, where there's more of an effort for them to try to spend the money so that they won't lose the money. The money would sit in the reserve, but the equipment would be delayed as far as the acquisition. One of the other things that we can look at if we want to minimize expenses is to look at lease purchase arrangements on some of the equipment, which cost in excess of $100,000. The problem is that at many times what the borrow rate is on the lease value is higher than what we would be paying if we were to even if we were to bond it for a 5-year period or a 10-year period. So we'll look at each of the different avenues on ownership versus lease value. I want to also make it clear that several times people have said, well, if we're going to buy a vac truck, why don't we share it with North Kingstown or Narragansett? The number of hours that these trucks are being used, as well as the high maintenance function associated with its operation, does not make this a piece of equipment that you're going to have for shared use. Just the number of hours that we need it within the wastewater division or within the public works division to be able to clean the catch basins as well as to clean the sewer system make this really almost a full-time use vehicle.
Again, one of our 7 pickup trucks in highway, they're kind of the daily workhorses. When we have a snow event like we had 2 weeks ago, they each have a assigned plow route. Obviously, with 2 feet of snow, we're limiting our capabilities compared to like a snow we had this past weekend. Again, we'll reevaluate this, you know, once the fiscal year starts, see if we can hang on to the existing truck a little longer. Again, I think it's not so much in my mind that dictates the trade-in value. It's when we start to look at repair expenses. You know, if a transmission goes, at that point it makes sense to trade it in and procure a new truck. Again, as the manager indicated earlier, we have an automated gate. The gate is used 24/7 after hours. The police, public safety, rescue, fire, they use our fuel farm, so the gate is in constant motion. It's a heavy wear item, and it's now in need of replacement.
One of the things that we've done is we've consolidated with the old police station, we used to have gas tanks there as well. What we've done is we've consolidated so that everyone goes through the public services, the Public Works garage as far as the fueling station is concerned. That also deals with the fire districts, as well as the school department has access to their building through the compound. So the gate and the electronic gate is an important component of the safety and security of that, of the equipment that's on that site. That's it as far as Public Works. The next element is the public safety component.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Come on up, Chief. Yeah. I'm following the budget document as it is. As we've noted in the development of the last budget, the public safety building is now 10 years old. Actually, we're in our 11th year at this point. It doesn't seem possible, but that building has been there for 11 years. We're now at a point where a majority of the workstations that were originally put in, that we're looking at the replacement of 25 of those units that are at least 5 years old. We've gone through, I think, about 2 and in some cases 3 generations of computer workstations, but the next 25 are in need of replacement at this point based on the documentation that's been provided. The unit costs are estimated around $1,500. We have a budget for equipment replacements. Right now, that reserve fund holds about $90,000. What we're looking to do is to put $10,000 into that for the 2010-2011 year. Project elements to be completed in 2009-2010. We're looking at the police communications system conversion. We've gone from a VHF system to the 800 megahertz. That's an interoperable system, where what that means is that we have communications availability with all of the surrounding communities as well as the fire districts. Everybody is able to communicate, and so that we don't have a situation where if we've got shared service responses that people are unaware of what the other divisions are doing. The 800 megahertz system is also one that's a statewide system at this point that's been set up so that no matter what type of an emergency is in place, that there will be common communication, which certainly proved to be one of the most difficult components in managing the fire at the in West Warwick. So the objective here is for us to have, we've got the mobile radios in place for the 800 megahertz. What we're looking to do now is to get the portable radios to be put in place so that there'll be those units would be on each of the officers themselves when they're outside of the vehicle. Vin, you want to walk through some of this?
Well, the conversion will include mobile radios and portable radios and also the control station equipment right at the police department. And it'll be a computer-based application as opposed to what we have now, touch tone. It'll be the state of the art. And we're also going to redesign the control center for the ergonomic function of the furniture, bearing in mind that it's a 24/7 operation, and those chairs and the furniture are used 24/7. So we need to make it as comfortable as possible for our personnel, and that's what this program will do. And also, we want to upgrade the voice recording system of the radio component. And then 2 years out, in the 11-12 year, we are anticipating the replacement of our telephone system. It's been in existence for the 10 years that we've been there, and we see a need for it in a couple of years to replace it in its entirety. We're fortunate enough, I think the town manager mentioned a few minutes ago, we're fortunate enough to receive a Homeland Security grant of $40,000. That's going to help us in
It's not working.
securing 22 radios initially. We need, we have 20 portables now. The grant will enable us to buy 22 more, and we'll need about 17 more to complete, Jackie. 22 more to complete the project. So with this $40,000 grant, it's going to be a major benefit in funding this program.
Yeah, what I've got on the board is on page 85 of the document, and what we're looking at is the communications equipment upgrades will be about a $407,000 project. $30,000 coming out of the current year budget, as well as in 10-11 and 11-12, there'll be $66,000. Most of the dollars are in reserve now. There's $180,000 that are in reserve. We're also reassigning, we had begun to reserve dollars for the construction of the storage and evidence processing building that was going to be built at the public safety building. Based on the cost of it, as well as the fact that we felt that getting the communications equipment in place was far more important than us having that money reserved. So we're assigning that $50,000. So there's the $230,000 that's available toward the $400,000 project. We're also looking at grants that are coming in through the federal and state that will also assist. There'll be stimulus dollars that are available, as well as JAG grants that have been awarded for this. So overall, we're looking at the $407,000. This is not inclusive of the $40,000 more that the chief has secured from Homeland Security funds that will also be used to pay for a portion of this. Once that pays for a portion of this, then we would have dollars available within that reserve fund that could then be committed to the communications equipment for the alarm system element that belongs in the communications center. This is the picture of the old, this was prior to some of the improvements being made. The closed-circuit television camera setups that were approved in the capital budget 2 years ago have been completed. What started out really as 8 individual sites within the building that had closed-circuit TV have now turned into about, I think it's 32 sites that are monitored. They are also, the cameras can be refocused as well as they can zoom in and zoom out. They give us pictures of both each of the entries and exit doors. They give us each of the different rooms, any of this, and plus it's all recorded in color. So we've got anything that goes on in the police station, as well as supervision of prisoners, is all within what's an up-to-date standard as far as the cable closed-circuit television is concerned. The communication equipment that you see there will be replaced, as the chief said, with new setups that will be far more efficient in terms of the operation than what was available when the system was built 11 years ago. So we're looking to be able to do the modernization here with that $400,000 program. And again, $30,000 will be in the 10-11 year budget. The $10,000 that I had originally budgeted for the general upkeep and maintenance on the building has been reduced to $5,000. And again, this is as a way of trying to cut the capital budget for budget purposes. The next item that we're going to talk about is the EMS program, and I think Keith is here, isn't he? Yep. In the budget document, if you go to
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Jackie.
page 86 and 87 have Keith's pages. The picture on the wall is one of the transport vehicles. The town operates 24/7 with one vehicle and 12 hours a day with a second vehicle for transport. It also operates 24 hours a day with a utility vehicle which acts as a first responder. There are also two backup vehicles. One is two that are transport ambulances and one that's a utility.
We're down to one reserve transport and one reserve utility.
Well, we're down to that, but what we will be doing is replacing the existing vehicles and holding them as the backups that will be necessary. What we're looking at is, and Keith, you may want to walk them through it about the vehicle replacements. We'd originally anticipated replacing one vehicle based on its condition. We think we can get another year out of it. The other piece of equipment needs replacement first, so why don't you talk about it?
Actually, this year we had originally budgeted to replace this vehicle here, Rescue 3. And next year we were budgeted to replace the utility vehicle, which is a Suburban. Based on the condition of this particular vehicle, it's in relatively good condition. The mileage is lower than we projected. We flip-flopped this year, and we're going to replace the Suburban this year, which will lower my CIP by about $40,000, but we'll end up having to make it up next year when we finally replace this vehicle, which will have about $90,000 on it by then. Generally, I try to get 10 years of service out of these vehicles, 5 years as a frontline vehicle and 5 years as a reserve. And what I found as our call census goes up, that 10 years was a little too long. I believe last year 90% of my maintenance costs went to the reserve vehicles. So I'm not getting the life I need out of the reserve vehicles. It's costing us a lot of money. So that schedule of 5-year replacement, we've kind of shortened down to 4 years, and that should actually help save us money, even though we're buying a new ambulance frequently, more frequently. We're not spending as much money keeping the reserve vehicles on the road.
And we expect the price of these vehicles are about $150,000, between $140,000 and $150,000. The Suburban will be in the area of $60,000 with the equipment that's necessary on it. So what we do on a yearly basis is to provide funding into the capital reserve for the EMS vehicle replacement, and then we replace as necessary. But these are expensive pieces of equipment, but they can't be down.
Keith, is it more runs still up to South County Commons, to the Brightview? Is that still been increasing?
Yeah, they're increasing. They're a steady part of our run volume. You know, one year we didn't go there at all, and then the first year I think we went there 170 times.
Yeah.
That they were occupied.
Yeah.
So they've had a significant impact on us. And it's not just the mileage that goes on the trucks, it's the overall wear and tear.
Yeah,
You know.
stopping and starting, yeah, absolutely. All right, thank you. Any other questions?
The second element for EMS is the facilities improvements. Again, money is held on a yearly basis in reserve from the capital budget. At this point, there's about $16,000 that's in the reserve balance that is available for station modifications. Keith, you want to talk about the South Station, and I'll show the pictures.
Sure. As you know, the South Station was the original police station that was built, I don't know when the first floor was built, in the 60s, and then the second floor was added, I think, in the 70s. We moved out in 1999 as the building, we grew out of the needs of the building, and John Schock's department moved in. It was never, when we vacated that building, we never envisioned putting a rescue over there. Since we added Rescue 3 during the day to cover the south part of the town, we've made 2 updates to the garage in that building. The garage right now currently only has 1 inch of clearance above the rescue. The garage was never built to hold an ambulance there. We've raised the ceiling. John Schock's folks have jackhammered the floor and made a bigger hole. You know, they lowered the floor for us to fit the truck in there. And it's still not quite big enough. It still has flooding issues when we have heavy rains. There is a drain in there, but it was never intended to hold an ambulance 24/7. Also, the crew quarters is upstairs on the 2nd floor of that building, and it also is pretty small. We've got 2 people in that room 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. And and definitely needs a lot of renovations. The floors, the ceilings, the walls, we plan on painting. Recently, we've noticed that the building's taking on some water on the wall that faces Route 1. So in areas, in that room there, and along the entire wall of that building, the plaster's getting soft enough where you can actually push it in. So there's a water problem over there, which we haven't even, John and I haven't really even discussed how much that's gonna cost to replace. So, yeah, so this renovation has nothing to do with replacing the plaster. It's just mostly cosmetic. So ceiling, paint, carpeting, and doing some work to the kitchen, which is downstairs, which would benefit both the EMS and the DPW crew there. The building is definitely shared by three departments. The communications department's in there for the fire alarm. DPW and EMS all share in that building and that kitchen. So all these funds would benefit all the departments. When we have the opportunity to do this, I'm not sure. I know we've been putting it off for a while. Whether or not that EMS has any need to expand in the future will, I think, be the biggest motivating factor for making these improvements. But at some point in the future, we're definitely going to have to address the garage. Obviously, we can hold off on a kitchen for people, but the EMS garage at some point is going to need major renovations, and the wall, as we've seen this year, is going to need some renovations too. So I actually feel the money we're putting aside right now is probably not enough based on what I see the future needs for this building are. And I think we've made as much use out of this building as we can. Again, it was never intended to be a rescue station. So I think we're doing a good job with it, but every year that goes by that we don't invest the money in this building is going to make it harder in the future to make those renovations.
I think the other point that needs to be made is that some may say, well, gee, why do you need the garage and why wouldn't you just store the vehicle outside? During inclement weather and winter conditions, the medication that is in those trucks is going to be adversely impacted. So it has to be in a heated space. If the vehicle doesn't have a garage, then you're going to have a heater within the unit itself. So the garage is a necessity, not a wish. Because some people have suggested to me, I don't know why you need the garage space in the first place. There's good explanation for it. In addition to the south station, we also need to reinvest in the north station, or the rooms that are used in the public safety building. Again, with that building being 11 years old and it being occupied 24 hours a day, the kitchen facilities, those crews work 24-hour shifts. So they are cooking there, eating in the facility. Some of the equipment that the chief put in 11 years ago, he put everything up in his office and didn't give much to EMS.
We have 3 kitchens in the police station. We have a kitchen on the second floor. We have a kitchen in the basement for all the employees in the police station, and this kitchen is on the second floor where EMS is located. This kitchen by far gets the most use. Again, it's in tough budget times, we can easily say, well, we can put off, that renovation, but at some point we're either going to decide not to have a kitchen at all, or we're going to have to replace at least the stove and the refrigerator.
And our objective is to have a kitchen, because the more that we keep the people in the building, the better the response time is going to be, and the less complaints we have that the vehicle is in town. So those are the 2 components that Keith has, and I certainly agree. I wish there was more dollars that could be available with that. What we've got to do is to look at the building, come up with a comprehensive building plan, and then be able to provide proper funding in future years.
Yeah, that building does definitely need some work. I mean, we didn't do a tour, poor Carol never got to go and see it, but we've seen it. It is not pleasant to work in there, that's for sure. I give you credit. Please tell me you've gotten rid of those blue recliners though in there. Polly and I said they can't
I believe they're gone.
Okay.
Oh,
yeah.
good.
Because we have seen that picture, and it was a few years back.
Yeah.
They replaced them with green ones. I don't know if that's any
okay.
better.
It has to be better.
How about those bunk beds? Are they still the same bunk beds? in the
They are
back?
still there.
Oh, okay.
Those came from URI.
Did they really?
They're probably about 20 years old.
Yeah, yeah. The hallway up there, it is, it does, we need to Well, when times get a little bit better, hold on, Keith.
We will. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
We've already talked about this under the major projects as far as the Kingston Library. Again, what we're looking at is we've got the next item is the senior transportation vehicle. That's a 3-year funding program. What we're looking at is taking the $25,000 down to $20,000 in the 10-11 year. We will look at purchasing that transportation vehicle probably through the RIPTA bus system, where they're buying a number of the buses. We would be able to purchase through them. The forecasted cost at this point is anywhere between probably $85,000 to $110,000. This is a picture of the seniors' bus that's used on a day-to-day basis. This operates 5 days a week for the senior transportation program. It also provides the transportation, as I mentioned earlier, to get folks to and from the meal site without the state charging them the $4 to get in and $4 to get out.
Steve, do we charge anything for that ride now?
No, we don't.
Thank you.
The general government programs that are also included in the capital budget are $10,000 with the GIS mapping program. As the narrative explains, the $10,000 that we're looking at is necessity for us to be able to maintain the 2 websites that we operate with for the GIS system, as well as using CDM as the consultant with the software, the upgrades, as well as providing the technical assistance to be able to keep those sites up. The public site is outside of the town. That way, there's no breach of firewalls as far as use of the main GIS system, which is inside the firewall. What we do is we take those maps, and they're provided through CDM. CDM has its own server that provides use to the public of those maps, and we provide those updates on a monthly basis. The administrative network, that's all the computers in the town hall, and those need to be replaced just as they do in the public safety building. We have $10,000 go into that reserve on an annual basis, and we spend the money accordingly. The property appraisal program, we've talked about reval with the need for the $120,000. The town hall renos, we've already talked about that. That's the $5,000 revised figure at this point. The final items to discuss tonight is the utility funds, and the utility funds, again, for those that haven't been through the process often, no property taxes go into the utility funds. All utility funds are paid for through user fees. The water fund, the proposal is really for the 3rd year of funding for the repair and renovation of the Factory Pond Dam. The town has a water source. We purchase for South Shore Water System now. All of the water is purchased through a cooperative agreement with United Water. So we do not produce our own water at this point. We purchase the water. But we have a well field that is maintained and exercised at Factory Pond. At Factory Pond, we own 3/4 of the land around the pond, and we also own the dam because that's a man-made water body. The dam is in need of major repair. At this point, we'll have about $135,000 that will be available for that project. What is necessary at this point is to have engineering plans developed and a probable construction cost established. There may be additional years that we will have to continue to contribute to be able to get this repair in place. This is a picture of the dam itself. It's an earthen dam. John, you may want to go into some detail on it.
Yeah, as the manager mentioned, it was formerly a Sen factory. There's a foundation there that's historical. So what we call the toe of the dam, which is the downstream side, is rather steep and subject to sloughing. So what we need to do is flatten out the toe side, the downstream side, and bring up the freeboard of the dam. The dam has a very low freeboard between the existing pool elevation of the pond and the top. So one of the major things you don't want to have happen to a dam is have it overtop, because if it overtops and it scours and it breaches. So we're going to raise the freeboard and put some armor protection on the front of the dam, and then fix the back side of the dam. We did get a grant from the Fish America Foundation that was used for fishway improvement. The state is trying to reintroduce alewives back into the pond, and we'll also be applying for construction funds from Fish America for the fishway improvements that are going to be incorporated into the spillway of the new dam. So right now, the design is almost done. The council previously awarded a contract for that. And then once the design is complete, we've got to go through permitting process with Coastal Resource Management Council, DEM, and I believe we may even need Army Corps approval as well.
So at this point, the projected construction schedule is probably 2 years forward. The wastewater fund is looking at a capital budget of $310,000, and this starts on page 89. And it is made up of 5 different program components. Let me start out by saying that the $310,000 is not South Kingstown's cost. The $310,000 is based on what the cost to the regional system will be. The wastewater system is a shared system. We are in a regional partnership with Narragansett and the University of Rhode Island. Capital costs are shared based on the percentage share of use of each of the different elements or components. At the wastewater treatment plant, if we use 35% of the flow space, Narragansett uses 45 and the university uses 19. As far as capital cost sharing for those components associated with that regional treatment plant, each of those partners would pay that proportionate share. Silver Lake Pumping Station is only used by the town of South Kingstown and the University of Rhode Island. 65% of the use is for South Kingstown, so we pay 65% of the cost of any improvements that take place, so forth. The same way with Kingston. Kingston Pump Station, 88% is paid for by the university. So if we've got a $100,000 pump that's going to be replaced in Kingston, URI pays $88,000 of that cost. If we have a $100,000 pump at Silver Lake, we pay $65,000. So when we look at the 310 is the actual acquisition. We are the managing partner for the regional system, and we do cost sharing based on a percentage of flow through each of the different components. The improvements that are planned over the next really 2 years in most cases is to deal with the outfall diffuser repairs, the replacement of one of the pumps at Silver Lake, some of the interceptor system cleaning that's necessary, vehicle replacement, and sludge pumps upgrade. When we look at the outfall of the diffuser, I think that folks are aware that the regional treatment plant is in Narragansett on Westmoreland Street. From Westmoreland Street, there is a underground pipe that goes out to Tucker's Dock in Narragansett. It extends out to water that's about 40 feet deep, and there's 5 diffusers on the end of that outfall pipe, and that's to get rid of the liquid effluent, which is clean water that comes out of the wastewater treatment plant. Over the years, and those diffusers have been in place since 1975, they have been either blocked with debris or they've been hit by draggers. We've got one of the 5 diffusers is partially blocked with debris. One's been damaged. 5 of the diffusers are blocked with debris. what we need to be able to do is to do two things. One is to go in and repair those diffusers, because as the diffusers are blocked, what it does is it reduces the capacity of the plant to be able to outflow the effluent. We also would like to see that a buoy be placed there so that it would be clear to either the draggers that are in that area that if they are dragging, that they're going to hit something. The damage that's done there has to be repaired with scuba divers. What we're looking at is a projected cost of $100,000, of which South Kingstown's share would be about $35,000. The inspection's been done of the diffusers. There's a video that was taken that is being used by John now to estimate what the repair costs are gonna be. Want to go with any more on that?
No, I think that covers it.
Why don't you go with the pump station improvements?
Yep, this is one of the three pumps at a Silver Lake Pump Station. That's the main station for South Kingston that handles all of the flow from South Kingston and the Kingston campus of the university. One thing, I think we're very fortunate, we have a good maintenance staff. These pumps are very heavy. They're 30 inches in diameter, so it's a relatively big pipe. And what that does, all the side street sewers in the whole collection system come down and they eventually flow into the interceptor. And the interceptor is the main trunk line that again runs along the Saugatucket River and ends up going to the Silver Lake Pump Station. So if that line is compromised for whatever reason, we would have a significant problem to deal with. So we want to make sure that it's in good condition and that any repairs that are necessary are made. So far from the preliminary inspection, we did about half of it maybe this summer. It looks really good, so we want to finish that inspection next year, and then based upon the inspection results, we'll know if we need to do any corrective work or not. And again, because that one flows into Silver Lake, that cost is shared just between the university and South Kingstown.
John,
Yep.
follows the question.
Could we go back to the diffusers? If they are 40 feet down,
Yep.
what is it that damages them? The current of the water?
Well, I think it's not the current. I believe one of them has what appears to be fishing nets in the diffuser, so we believe it's where the draggers come through.
I see.
So as the manager indicated, it's important, I think, when we go in and make the repairs, we put some type of buoy system in to prevent the draggers from, going over the top of it. The other one, when they built it, it looks like they use, revetment stone to kind of protect it. And it looks like one of the diffusers is broken off. It may have been by a dragger, we don't even know at this point, and is being blocked by one of these stones that's kind of surrounding the diffuser system.
Thank you.
When we talk about diffusers, if you think about it, it's like the pipe, and then you've got 5 pipes
Fingers.
that stick up
Fingers,
like
yeah.
fingers, and they are extended in the air from the ocean bottom. It's those that have been either knocked with the revetment stone or that are covered with debris. So those 5 pipes that come off of the main pipe need to be cleared and reset so that they will be able to handle the optimal amount of volume that can go through that diameter of pipe. Right now, it will back up at the sewer treatment plant if, in fact, we don't take proper steps to ensure that the diffuser's
cleaned
capable of handling the diameter pipe that goes to it. It was just like a floor drain that would back up if it was clogged.
Yeah,
It just
thank
can't handle the water. Slowly it'll go through, but if you have a major use going on of the treatment plant, you're gonna have more flows coming through than you're gonna want to be able to exit within a reasonable period of time.
The last item is a utility body truck that has an electric crane on it. This is kind of our workhorse for the treatment plant. It's used primarily for the pump stations to lift equipment, lift pumps when we're replacing materials. It's now, 14 years old, in need of replacement again, but as with the highway division vehicles, we'll reevaluate that come the beginning of the fiscal year and see if we can get more time out of it. If we can't, at that point, we'll have to go out to bid for a new vehicle.
That really brings us to the end of tonight's review. The last sheet that I have up on the board at this point is page 100. And page 100 is a summary of how both the capital budget and the major projects that we've been talking about would be spread out over the 6-year life. And again, this is a planning document rather than a documentation of when these projects will occur or when the expenses will be incurred to make these projects reality. What this is the flow that would occur and when the bonding would occur over that 6-year period. So we'll get back to this sheet once we get through the meeting on the 12th, and we've gone through all of the open space and recreation associated programs. So with that, Kathy, I turn it back to you, and be glad to answer any questions.
Does anybody else have any questions for Steve regarding any of this? It's always in detail. No questions from the council, but if anybody from the public would like to come forward and ask any questions, now is the time to do so. If you do come forward, please state your name clearly for the record. No? No? Well then, I guess our meeting is officially over for tonight. We have a council meeting next Monday, and then the next meeting on the capital improvement is, as Steve said, January 12th will be our next phase. Okay? Well, thank you very much for coming, and the meeting is adjourned at 8:47 PM. Thank you.
Oh, I hope so. Oh, yeah. At least now, which one? Yeah. Program description. Pages. Quite a bit. 32 through